you ever gone into a space where you're like, ooh, this doesn't feel good at all. This doesn't feel right.
I feel like that would happen if you walked in my apartment, by the way.
It happens to me every time I walk in here.
It happens to her always. Hey, everybody, I'm Lori Schulweiss.
And I'm Jen Giamo.
And welcome to another episode of Everybody Talks, the podcast where we explore the wide world of wellness. Sometimes we talk to experts, sometimes we just talk to each other, always talking to you.
Every week we discuss topics from nutrition and exercise to mindfulness and self-care. And today we are talking all about Feng Shui.
Feng Shui. Let's get started.
We are welcoming back two special guests today for part two of our conversation.
Right.
They are the co-founders of the Mindful Design Feng Shui School, co-hosts of the podcast Holistic Spaces, and co-authors of the book Mindful Living, A Guide to the Everyday Magic of Feng Shui.
One is a licensed architect and teacher of Feng Shui. Her expertise lies in blending Feng Shui principles with sustainable design. The other is a certified Feng Shui consultant, interior decorator, and tarot card reader. She combines Feng Shui principles with personal empowerment and helping people improve their well-being by transforming their lives, transforming their living spaces and their lives. Please welcome back to Everybody Talks, Anjie Cho and Laura Morris. Thank you, ladies, for coming back. I'm sorry I've muddled the beginning. We're so excited to talk to you again. Just as a reminder, we talked to you a little while ago and talked about your backgrounds, and we got way off track.
Yeah, which is why you're back. So thank you.
Well, you're back, but you wrote this beautiful book called Mindful Living, which we are going to talk more about today, and really get into the symbolism on Feng Shui and really tell people what that is about, including myself. I know very little. And even as I'm looking through your book, I still am not sure I understand what you're talking about. So you're going to make that all clear today.
You're gonna,
I know. I'm very famished. I am very famished.
Absolutely.
All right, so just want to recap, for our audience, although we do want you guys to go back and listen to the first part of this conversation with Anjie and Laura. But this book really goes beyond the basics of Feng Shui. It teaches us how to build a deeper connection with our homes through Feng Shui and mindfulness. And it really shows us how to change the energy of our spaces, right?
Yeah. Which is super interesting and just makes you look around and see what you've
and want to change
what you've
everything.
done wrong.
Yeah,
Yes,
you want to change
you totally
in your
are
space.
like, oh, but my bed's in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
But,
I guess just if you could
just quickly remind us, what Feng Shui is and the basic principles of it, and what are common misconceptions that people have about it.
Sure. So Feng Shui is an art that comes from Asia, and it looks at your space, like your home or your garden or your built-in, but man-made environments that we live in, and we look at how we can create a space that supports us rather than creates more challenges, more obstacles. And Laura and I also like to describe Feng Shui as a mindfulness practice. It's a way of beginning to look at your environment and looking at the details of your environment, so you can become more present and mindful instead of really forgetting that so much of your life and so many things that happen to you are your home witnesses all of that, right? We're born in a space, we die in a space, we live our lives in a space, and so much can be shaped by our environment.
Yeah. What okay, so I really want to dig deep into some of the concepts that you talk about in the book. And one is a term I had never heard before called Bagua. And it's the mandala, right, of this practice. Can you kind of explain to us, first of all, am I saying it correctly? And what that is, how do we use it? I know there's 9 areas or 9 sort of segments of that, right? So kind of tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So Feng Shui has a lot of tools, and one of them is called a bagua, and you said it correctly.
Okay.
And bagua actually translates to ba is 8, and gua means image, area, direction, that kind of feeling. And we also like to call it a mandala because that's kind of a term that people are becoming more and more familiar with. And I think it's sometimes people also call a Bhagwat map as well. But we like the term mandala just because it's now people are getting more knowledgeable about that. And it seems to be more descriptive because it's a concept where you have a center and it radiates out. Just like if you think about where you are right now, where the listeners are, where they're sitting right now, where you guys are, Lori and Jen and Laura, where we're all sitting, you're like in the center, but there's a front, there's a left, there's a right, there's a behind. So there's directions around you. And so you kind of start to look at your own mandala and how you live in a space. So then in the most basic way, this tool is like a 3x3 grid, like a tic-tac-toe, and it can be overlaid, let's say on your floor plan or like your bedroom, like one room, it can be overlaid. So you could start to investigate how these areas affect your home, your life, and how you move through a space. And there's technically 8 areas around a center, which makes 9 kind of spaces.
You with us? Okay.
Yes, I'm at rapt attention.
I know.
No, I'm paying attention because I'm just like thinking of my
Yeah,
own
I know.
space.
I just
It's hard not
when
to-
you were describing it, I was
Yeah.
getting a visual in my head.
Yeah,
Of like,
totally.
so that's something like, so you said you can like overlay that on a floor plan, whether it's a specific room or an entire house or something like that. So what does that look like? What are the areas that we're looking at in those different segments of this map?
Yeah. So the best way to kind of think about this, and I think this is really helpful, especially on a podcast. So everyone here and anyone listening can visualize that they're standing in the doorway of their bedroom looking in.
Mhm.
And you're looking into the bedroom. And so you can divide your room because most people have a rectangular room. So you could divide that room into that tic-tac-toe, that 3x3 grid. And there's suddenly like you can visualize like 9 little sections of your room. And the 2 most important or the 2 most popular ones, not important, but popular ones, is if you're standing in the doorway of your bedroom looking in, the far left corner is what's called like the abundance area. And there's many different layers to that. Like there's lots of words and life experiences connected to each area. So this one's abundance. It's also purple. It's also like a wood element, which is like a big tree. And so there's a lot of metaphors and symbols like and numbers and colors that overlay with this. But for the average person, they just want to know that it's related to wealth and abundance and it's purple. So that's easy to kind of figure out. And then the other popular area is if you're standing in the doorway looking in, the far left corner is the relationship area. So it could be romantic relationship. It could also be like Lori and Jen, Angie and Laura, we both have like relationships with our partners, right? These are not our marriage partners, but it could be romantic relationships. It could be like really important partnerships in your life. And it's also the color pink. And then it's like it's related to earth element, but like sand at a beach, really like fine, soft earth. And so there's like lots of different ways that you can look at each of these areas. They all have like a description, a color, and a feeling to it. And of course, those are the 2 popular because people like to they want help attracting a partner or improving their current relationship, or they want more wealth, or they want to feel more wealthy and abundant, which may not be financial wealth, but they want to feel like generous, right?
Okay. So the left side is abundance and wealth. The right side is
The right side is relationships.
Okay.
Yes.
The
and far corners.
The far right corner, right? The far right and the far left corners. So does that mean this association with those colors? Does that mean that you should have those colors in those spaces of your room, or am I off?
You can. So this is the one thing about Feng Shui that we just want to make clear is that you don't have to organize your life around these things. When we talk about these things, we use them as a way to read a space, to understand, but also to be able to activate certain parts of your life. So it's a tool. So we would never want everyone to sit there and go, oh my gosh, I need to paint that corner purple now. Like, that's not what you need to do. Or, oh my goodness, the color's wrong. Now my wealth is going to be bad. That's not at all what we do. And we hear that a lot. Instead, we want this to be an opportunity. It's a tool to use amongst many tools that we have to take note of what is there, first of all, because there's kind of two layers. There's the assessing and like awareness and, maybe even correcting something that's there in that area. And then there's the enhancing and the activating. So first we would say, let's just use the example of the wealth area. We've already talked about that: abundance, wealth, prosperity, all those great things. So you're standing in your bedroom door, you're looking toward the far left corner, and you're going to go over to that corner and you're going to say, what do I have here? Well, I happen to have my laundry bin, my garbage can. I don't, well, maybe there's an opportunity for you to be mindful of that and sort of think about, what does that mean? Maybe moving it, out of that area, or making sure that you're regularly, cleaning it out or making sure that it's productive. So then you're taking note, you're being aware, boom. That's the first thing that we would do in Feng Shui. The second thing we would say is, okay, you've said that you want to become more prosperous or feel more secure financially, or to appreciate what you have in your life, more gratitude, et cetera, et cetera. There's tons of layers to this. And then we would say, okay, well, let's see, what can we do there? What's some way we can enhance it? And in Feng Shui, we have many different simple little tools to do. I'm going to give, because listeners are probably going to be like, what do I do? The straight up easiest to do for that area is just to put a plant in it, honestly. And just because a plant is
I
the
like
plant
that.
for that. And it works well for that
Yeah.
area because there's many reasons. But one, Angie had mentioned, it's the wood. So each of these areas has layers and layers and layers of meaning that come from like ancient texts. And one of them happens to be that the underlying energy and element is wood, and a plant is wood. And so you're
Yeah.
feeding your wealth. You're like giving it some life. You're like making it kind of activate. So it works really well there. If you don't have, a window, or you're worried about a light source, you can just add something small, color purple. That's it. It doesn't have to be, it could be literally like a piece of amethyst. Or, you could put something in a purple pot, things like that. So it's being really intentional. It's being creative too. Like, we always encourage people to be creative. And it's really fun when you work with clients. They're like, oh my gosh, I have this piece of art that I have and I loved, and it's like got these purple, like, lavender in it. And I've always wanted to hang it there. And it's like, oh my gosh, well, it's meant to be. Boom, hang it there. And then set the intention that now you want to really start to, like, enhance, activate, and pay attention to your money, your finances, your wealth, all of those great things.
So everything is based on where the doorway is. Like if I'm
Yes.
standing at the
Yes.
doorway. So for instance, of course it's hard not to think of your own rooms, you're thinking.
Oh, I've
your
already
own.
thought about it, and
Yeah,
I've already put the thing in the spot that it's going to go. And
Yeah, we want to
yeah,
know.
I'm there.
I have
I'm
not,
there.
but I like I think we've gone over this the last time, what a little clutter hound I am. And so, but my doorway is all the way over already, like along the left. So I have a closet, and then I have an area that is like, has old photographs and stuff that I essentially I have to move. But I'm looking straight ahead, even though the door is on the
That's
far
okay.
left. That's the far left, right?
That's
And
still
then-
the far left. Yeah,
Okay.
it's still the
Yeah.
far
Gotcha.
left.
Yeah.
So
Left
that,
is
yeah,
still the
you would
left.
want to
Shut
stand
up.
in your door, like, so you're in the door.
Yeah.
You're not
not-
turned.
You're not
right?
in the
I'm not
room.
in the
You're
room.
not turned in the
Yeah,
room.
I
You're
know, that
just
was a
in
very
the
simple
doorway.
thing, but I was
Okay.
thinking like,
No, that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So does it have to be a real plant, or could it be a fake plant? Is one question.
It can be an artificial plant. They're nicer and nicer every time now. They've created quite beautiful ones that look really
do.
realistic. So the most realistic, the better. But
Okay.
we also really encourage people to, it depends on the reason. If you just think, oh, I've got a brown thumb, I can't handle it, then okay, fine, then you can do that. But we encourage people to try with a plant because it has so many other qualities to it in Feng Shui. It represents so many things. It sounds really simplistic, but for the listeners out there and for you guys, just because plants don't mean feng shui, like you can use many other things. So what I would say, instead of using a plant and instead of using an artificial plant, I would instead go to using purple.
Okay.
Or using,
Okay.
or
Gotcha.
just activating it. So we always tell people, you don't need to do 3 things. You just need to do one thing really confidently and really lovingly. And so maybe it's to put a floor lamp there, right? Because you light it up. You can light that area up.
Okay.
So there's lots of different ways to do it. And we have lots of different tools, but like a light is great, or, the color, which is purple, or an active living thing like a plant.
Okay. Okay.
Now, does my terrace? I have a terrace off my bedroom, which is unusual in New York, I guess, to have a terrace at all. But I actually have a tomato plant that is semi-thriving.
It is thriving.
It is
No, you've
thriving.
got
I mean,
some-
I have a lot of tomatoes. It survived me being away for 6 days, which it really has like an amazing life, this tomato plant. But does that count, even though it's not in the room, but it's like part of the room, or is the terrace another room?
Probably we would say no. Like I would say, I'd have to see the floor plan, but I'm going to err on the side of caution and say no, just work within your room, within your bedroom.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. I did, last time we spoke, you guys talked about the entryway of your space, of your house or apartment or whatever, and having red in that space, right? So I did that. I went home that day and I put a little, I have this, actually Lori got for me, a red ladybug, and we'll talk to you guys a little bit later if we have time about the ladybug
The
connection
ladybug and
and
us,
why
yeah.
that's in our logo and all of that stuff. But she bought me this beautiful ladybug, and I also have a red butterfly, both baccarat.
Yes.
And so
We have fancy red things.
fancy red things. So I put I
That's
put
so cute.
those 2 things in my entryway on this little thin little entryway table that I have. So I feel like I did that, and then I forgot why I was supposed to do that, but I did it. So can you just remind me
Yes.
of what that means? What's the symbolism there?
The red in the entryway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were talking about bringing in opportunities, and the front door is an incredibly important area in Feng Shui. It's what we call the mouth of Qi, which means where most of the energy is entering into your home. And so it's nice to have something that kind of, I like to describe it as kisses the Qi, like it kind of zings it. It kind of like, boosts it a little bit. And red in Feng Shui is it is the most powerful color, and it has a lot of different elements to it and layers to it. And you mentioned the ladybug, and ladybugs are, symbolically, ladybugs are actually connected with protection and renewal and all those things. And it has a lot to do with the fact, well, they're red, right? So that red connection is really important. So the ladybug is kind of like a double whammy for activating, but also you have protection in there as well, because the red in Feng Shui is auspicious, it's lucky, it's protective, it's like a cure-all in Feng Shui. It's like a magic color.
Wow.
I love that.
I love that.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to have
know.
that
I need
energy in
something
my,
red. I
in my
know.
entryway. Okay, so that we're talking about colors. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that, and like what specific colors or materials can enhance different aspects of our life, or the meanings of these different colors? Okay, that's Laura. Okay.
Yeah, in the book I wrote the color chapter. I'm an artist as well, so I paint a lot. And so when I was writing that chapter, I really loved doing it because a lot of it was looking at natural pigments and understanding where those came from and the history of them. And I brought that into it without nerding out and geeking out and boring everyone. I brought it into a certain level, here and there. And so colors have, obviously, in Feng Shui, many different layers. One, you can look at colors in many different ways within Feng Shui, because we have, I want to say, probably 5 to 6 color systems just alone, like ways of kind of thinking about color and, understanding its symbolism. But what we did in the book is we came up with, I can't remember, I almost think it was 27 different colors. And then we kind of gave you what they meant and how to use them. But broad strokes, colors the easiest color system in Feng Shui, and I don't think we talked about this last time, is what is based on natural energies. And so it's one of these sort of this old Taoist philosophy and worldview called the 5 elements. And the 5 elements are essentially a way of looking at the entire world that we walk through, nature, everything, and seeing different characteristics within it. So there's wood, fire, earth, metal, water. Those are the 5. And each of those are represented, they have colors that are associated with them. So that's another way of sort of thinking about your space is, okay, so let's say you want to become, and we talked a little bit about this, I think, about being more grounded or being more, precise or being more, intuitive. And so color can help you get there if that's your intention. So let's say you wanted to become more precise, more productive, more exacting. Maybe you wanted to get work done a little bit more, quickly or whatever. The color white is associated with that, which is metal, which we talked about. And if you wanted to kind of add some inspiration, some fire, the color associated with fire is red. So you can kind of see that it's the in Feng Shui, color is, yes, cultural, yes, the things that are kind of connected to, that you understand, but the kind of bonus, the secret sauce is the underlying qi, the energy of it, which is very particular to Feng Shui. So we look at color a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Now, do you guys personally have, I know you have favorite colors because you talk about those in the book, but do you ever feel a different energy when you're in a space? Like, I would imagine your homes and your spaces are indicative of what you want to, bring into your life. But have you ever gone into a space where you're like, ooh, this doesn't feel good at all. This doesn't feel right.
I feel like that would happen if you walked in my apartment, by the way.
It happens to me every time I walk in here.
It happens to her always.
So I think that everyone has this capability. So that's also one of the things that we talk about in our book. We want to really make it clear that, there's nothing special about Laura and myself, except that we've really studied this discipline. And you don't need psychic abilities or have special gifts. That we're all capable of picking up on this, because you can all imagine that. Like, think about the last the last time you rented a new place or either walked into a new office or walked into a new apartment or house, right? Or you're looking for new houses, right? You would walk in and some of them you would say, no way, Jose. Like, you would just know and you don't know why. And then there's some that oh, no, I can work with this. And some that are like, yes, I love this. And just also you could visualize, you could be in Tuscany and maybe that feels good. Or maybe being on the beach. Some people like that, or someone would prefer to go to the mountains and be in a log cabin, right? Like, for me, I always want to be around water. That's what I live on the East River. So I always want to be around water. I'm kind of bored by looking at, I wouldn't want to be in a cabin in the woods without a lake. If there's a lake, I'll be there. So we all have kind of that feeling, but I think that there are some people that do maybe have enhanced abilities that would maybe be attracted to Feng Shui. And we certainly have known many people, but I don't think that you need it. And I do think that after, if you examine this and you really spend a lot of time in people's homes, I'm also, we're also interior professionals. I'm an architect and Laura's an interior designer. So we do go to people's homes a lot. So there are certain things that you do pick up on. But I think that I would say, Lori, for you, so many people say, oh my God, I'm totally embarrassed. I don't want you to come into my home. And I go in and I'm like, this is totally fine. Don't worry about it. I mean, it's obviously everyone here would not want to go into a hoarder's home. That's totally different. But if there's plenty of homes that are completely stark. Like, I went into one person's apartment. It was all white. It was all glossy. There was nothing there. And she was Japanese and really very rigid. And that kind of that stereotype. And it felt like there was no life in there at all, right? You wouldn't want to touch anything.
Yeah.
And then there's kind of the opposite. I've been to an older person's home where it smelled like they hadn't left in 2 years, that, it needed the windows needed to be opened and air it out. So,
yeah.
So
Okay.
yes and no.
Yes and no. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I want to just double back to the plants for a second. I'm also, again,
Mhm.
going to bring up my own example. In my living room, I have almost a greenhouse window that faces Third Avenue. And in this greenhouse window, I have 4 orchid plants that are thriving. Like one is 20 years old and it's
Oh,
still
wow.
flowers.
That's impressive.
And yes, I also feel it's somewhat spiritual because the person who gave it to me has passed. And so it's just on a side note. I mean, I'm divorced now, but it had gone, I couldn't get rid of it. Like she gave it to me for my 40th birthday, and then she passed away a few years later, and I couldn't get rid of the plant, and it seemed like it had died. And then I got engaged to my now ex-husband, and all of a sudden it bloomed, and I felt like she was giving like the okay. But ever since then, it continues to.
When you got rid of the husband,
I got rid of the
started
husband.
thriving again.
It's still blooming. It's still knock wood. Watch.
It's like
I keep
blooming
talking about this
flowers
plant,
that
and
are-
I keep talking about this plant. I don't want to move it, but that's what I'm saying.
No.
Like I don't necessarily want these plants there anymore, but I can't move them. They thrive there. But it's all about part of this like living thing. Are they like feeding off of whatever energy, like some magical energy in this window, or are they just like the light?
Well, I think it's a bit of both. So orchids are, interestingly, some people find them incredibly hard to grow and to cultivate and to continue to bloom.
I understand that.
So
Yes.
congratulations on that.
Thank
And
you.
generally they actually like, this is just because I'm a plant geek too. They like the light, but they also like that it's maybe a bit cool against the window sometimes
Yeah.
because they like to, that's how they forces them to bloom. But I will give you the symbolism of an orchid if you're interested.
Yes.
So orchids are actually really powerful in Feng Shui. They're one of the noble flowers. So in Chinese culture and as well in Feng Shui, and they represent a charming, mature, and graceful romantic partner. So they are the gentleman flower or the gentle person flower.
Oh.
And we see, it's funny, it's actually a Feng Shui adjustment to bring an orchid into your home, place it somewhere fairly visible. You can bring it into your bedroom. And remember, we were talking about that love corner. You could put it there, but again, only if the light works for it. Or you can just leave it somewhere really visible and try it and really take the time to take care of it. Because what we have people do is like, okay, so I got the orchid. I put it in my love area or I put it, somewhere I could see it. And now the flowers have fallen off. So I'm going to get rid of it. And we're like, no, exactly. Because but think of it. That's like part of like, almost like having a partner. Like you have to continue to cultivate the relationship.
Yes.
So it's like, no, orchids aren't easy, but relationships aren't easy either. And so if you can get something to bloom over and over again, for me, what I see from that is that you have an enormous amount of love and confidence, and you yourself are probably an incredibly charming and graceful person.
Yeah, and perhaps I am.
There you go.
Perhaps I am.
You want to give them away, but you
I don't. But they're not in very.
You don't like where they are.
Yeah, they don't look very nice. Like they're like I'm afraid.
I don't understand why you don't like them there.
I do like them
pretty.
there. I don't like the pots that
so
they
you
are
could
in. Like
repot them.
I don't want to. I'm afraid. I'm not doing it. I'm superstitious enough.
Very
that I am not
superstitious.
even like one even needs like I'm not touching them. Like I'm very aware. Like I'm not touching them.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I want to.
You could do one at a time. Or you can ask for help and have an orchid expert do one at a time and see if you can build your confidence. And how does that reflect in other areas of your life where you're scared to change something that's doing really well?
Look at this one.
Because you think you're going to ruin it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm going to ruin it. You're exactly right. I mean, that is definitely my MO. I'm definitely,
is like, she's like a Feng Shui expert and a psychic.
I know. Yeah. I don't like to ruffle feathers on things that I'm comfortable with.
Yes.
But there's something in your heart that's saying like, I'm not going to let this one go. It still bothers me. You want to change it. So there's something itching within you that really wants to like risk something. And with the greatest risk, you have the opportunity for the greatest rewards and the greatest failures. But for some reason for this, I think, why not just do what's your least, like, what's the one that you're okay with risking? And you could even say, like, maybe it's the one from your friend.
Right. I would never risk that one. I can't risk it. Like, she was too important to me, and the plant has become too important to me, you know?
What also might be interesting is that, like, also learning maybe more about it. Cause like you also have so much what we would call good chi, like really positive energy connected to these. Maybe Jen could benefit from some of them, some of it too.
Yeah.
So also, or maybe you have a niece or a nephew
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
a young person that really needs some support. Like you can really be so generous and share it. Like if you do need to let go of some. So knowing that like the really positive energy and all the magic that you've invested and received and all the gifts that you've received, you can share it with others too. So, but also also things about flowers is living things die. So
Right.
it's okay if
Yeah. I
if
know.
you fail on
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Angie, are you saying that I have a negative chi and I need positive energy? Is that what you mean by that?
Wait, and if you are meaning saying that, repeat it again.
I never said that. I never said that.
She's getting some kind of
I
vibe
know.
from me that my chi
No.
needs some work.
No.
But it sounds like they're so magical.
Yeah.
They are very magical to me. They are very magical to me.
Can I rent one?
Yeah, I know. Please, I still want you to come to my apartment and move everything around.
Yeah, right.
Sorry, we'll go back
I
to
want
you
to go
guys.
back to like
Yes.
these symbols in nature.
Yeah, I love that.
And the idea of feng shui, right, is everything is like alive and connected, right? How can, like Lori with the orchids, like how could we explore some of these nature symbols for ourselves? Like how do we know what we connect with or what is we're supposed to have in our space? Is that a question?
I think
Yeah,
so.
no, that's a good
Yeah.
question. And I
Okay.
think it's an important one. I think people are fascinated by symbols. And I think people are, I think right now people are hungry to bring other meaning into their lives, deeper meaning, almost a bit more spiritual something
I
that's
think
got
that's true.
something there that they've been gifted with, some meaning or message. And I think, and Angie and I think that nature symbols or using nature as an inspiration for that is a really great way to start. And it's kind of like your entryway into magical messages if you know where to look and if you take the time to look. And everyone lives in different areas and they're going to see different things. We've put together a list in our book of different symbols that you can look for. But I think sometimes people will if you take a walk in a park and you just have to be mindful and aware of your surroundings and be intentional and say, okay, today I'm going to see what comes across your path. And sometimes often things you'll take note of, like, oh, there's a raven that flew by, or, oh, look at that. That's really interesting. That white flower that's there that, it shouldn't really be there, or something like that. And you can do it just on a general walk, explore, you can, just with the intention of seeing something, or you can pick a specific day. Like sometimes I say, oh, for your birthday or a particular day, that's important to you, take a walk and notice what you see. And then once you see something, you research it, you can journal about it, you can look at our book and figure out what the symbols are, and then contemplate what this means to you. And the other way you can do it, so there's just that kind of observing in nature, but then you can think of, like, perfect example is your ladybug. Okay. So that is symbolic to you. That is meaningful to you. It means protection. It means renewal. It means all these great things. And so you took it and you placed it in your home with the intention of having it by the front door. So that's another way you can use the symbol. So let's say, for me, I really like birds. Okay. And so birds are inherently, any bird are messengers because they are magical in the way that they can land on the earth but yet they can fly to the heavens. So they are the conduit between heaven and earth. And so they let us attain goals. They kind of take our wishes to the air. And so, displaying images of birds, with the intention. So it can be really simple. It can, I think people probably listening are like, oh, I really love horses. Well, horses are fire, horses are success. You can place them in specific parts of your home, or just have them, where you can display them, and they have that kind of fiery energy of running and succeeding and going. So I think figuring out what you like. If you don't know what you like, go take a walk in the woods or in a park or outside and see what you see and see what comes to you. So that's kind of
Okay.
how we like to play around with them and work with them. It doesn't have to be super complicated. And as Angie says, like, you don't have to be like a magical witch to make this happen. You can just be aware.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like
It is
that.
funny though when things do appear. I mean, not that long ago, I was in, much like the ladybug with Jen and I was with a friend of mine visiting in Rockport. Did I tell this story already on this? No.
No.
And we were sitting at her dining room table, and it's the summer, and a cardinal came. I think it was a cardinal.
Yeah, you told me this. Yeah.
It was a cardinal was was outside, and she has like a garden along her fence, like one of these like upright gardens. And so
Mhm.
I saw a cardinal, and knowing, because my one leg is in the woo woo land and my one leg is out, I'm half in, half out. I noticed it, and I said, "Oh my God, Morris, there's a cardinal right there." And we both thought it was weird. And so then we went into town and we walked into a shop, and it was an art like a art gallery. The first painting we saw was of a cardinal. Then we go into another shop, and there was like a cutout of a bird that was being displayed, and it was like this cutout you could make yourself, like a puppet. It was a cardinal. Like everywhere we looked, there was a cardinal. And even she, who is all out and listens to me kind of spout on, was like, okay, this is weird. Like, what are we trying to figure out? What
What's the
message is coming
message?
through here?
Yeah.
And it is interesting when you do kind of open your eyes. I mean, Jen and I, the ladybug is so prevalent in our lives, when something is amiss, something's good, something's bad, we get news. A ladybug, whether it's a real live ladybug or a pin, a picture, a
Yeah.
symbol, it
Shows up.
It just shows up. It just shows up
Mm.
for us. So all you do have to do, I guess my point is, like, open your eyes. Things are there,
Yeah, open your eyes. And it means, I think if you're seeing that particular symbol over and over again, you're noticing it, and there's a reason, that pattern. And, like, for instance, a cardinal, it's a bird. So it's a message.
Yeah.
Now, it depends on how you see cardinals. You can get, cardinals are connected with spirituality, like big
Yeah.
S spirituality, as well
Yeah.
as, having a message from someone else. So they actually are really important symbols. And so, yeah, you can just, I think it's really cool that you noted it. And I think the way we look at, Angie and I look at it, is, I think part of the reason we put this chapter in is people are really interested in this. One, two, it forces people to stop and to just pay attention to what's going on around you, and to just see what you see. And, not everything means everything, but the fact that you notice something, I was noticing the other day that, like, I kept seeing snails everywhere, and I was just like, and I was like, look, and then I was like, that's a different one than that one. And, I was like, thinking about them. And then I looked at the symbolism, and in the tarot, it has a very specific meaning. And then it has, it was really cool. Like, I started exploring it more and more, and took that as a quiet little message, and then, moved along.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's good to pay
That's
attention.
interesting. So is it at all connected? And I think I did read this in your book. Is it connected at all with shamanism? Because I used to see a shaman, and we talked a lot about these kinds of symbols and spirit animals and different things. And just in, like, when I was going to see him, and things that would come up in my life, and I would just kind of pass them off as like, oh, whatever. But I would tell him these stories or these instances that happen, and he's like, how many times do you have to get this message for you to listen? Like, how many times is this going to hit you over the head? I'm like, I don't know. I guess now I'm like, now I've, I pay attention to those things, and I'm open, more open to it. I am open to it. But I love that. And I think people are very, really interested in what are those messages.
Yes.
And, but I think it's also in the way that you interpret it, or the way that you know, if they have different meanings, it's like, well, I want to attach myself to this meaning because that's what I, you know, want to feel, or
Yeah.
I want to believe, or yeah, that's cool. I like
I mean,
that.
and a lot of those symbols are related to people who obviously have passed away. And so, you know, the ladybug was very strong with my mom. My mom loved ladybugs. And so that's also tied in to like, I always feel like she kind of sent me Jen as like a friend, and that it made it very clear. It's like, stick with this person because, you know, she's going to.
She was very smart, your mother.
She was very smart. Sometimes, you know, I'm not so sure, but
She questions it a little bit, but then it comes back to the, and you see the ladybug again, and you're reminded that,
and
you
it's
know.
funny. I actually recently was talking to my coworkers, and a lot of people whose parents have passed away. My one friend, it's a quarter. Like whenever she's going through a bad spot, she'll look down on the ground and there's a quarter there, and she knows that that's her dad. You know, and it's funny because I don't think my dad kind of maybe believed in that kind of stuff, but I don't have something for him, and maybe it's like recent, and I'm just I feel like something's gonna show up,
Like you're looking
and,
for it,
like
or
I'm
you-
not looking for it, but I feel like I'll know it if I
when
see
it's
it.
there, yeah.
But I'm not even sure there will be something. Like the ladybug is so
I thought
clearly
it was the
associated.
orchid.
Well, I don't know if that's that. It could be, I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't know. The orchid predates his passing. But you know, I don't know what it is.
Wait, sorry, just out of curiosity, when did you start seeing the cardinal that
The
time?
cardinal that time was this past summer. Was it in June or August?
It was a few months after.
Yeah, it was in June, and my father passed away in March.
Cardinals are, I mean, I don't want to get too like, you know, woo-woo about this, but cardinals do often mean a message from a past loved one.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
totally.
that's one of their
I
symbols.
mean, that was
could have been
3 months after your dad
Yeah, it
died.
was. You're
Yeah.
right. You're right. Okay.
I mean, and this is, somebody told me this too. This is like, when you're ready to see it, when you're ready, you will see it.
Yeah.
And I know that's the same, like I've heard this, like when you have a dream and they appear in your dream, it is like a message from them when you're ready to hear from them and see it. And I always find that really, really powerful. So I think, you know, I, anytime when you're spending time paying attention to what's going on around you, and taking the time and pausing to see what something means on a deeper level is never a waste of time, right? It's always a great little magical moment.
To answer Jen's question, the feng shui that we practice does have a shamanic origin, and similar to these symbols that we're talking about in nature, we also look at how you mentioned how we look at everything as alive. So that also means that things in your home are alive, just like the cardinal or the images of the cardinal have meaning and vibrate with what's happening in your life and may resonate with you. Everything in your home vibrates with that energy as well. Like your bed is alive. We consider your bed a living being as well. Or your wallet. You know, how well you treat your wallet reflects on how well your wallet will treat you, or how well you treat your desk, or how you set yourself up. All of these things have energy, and they're alive, and they pulsate with the same chi, the same energy, that same life force energy that's within you, and it's within the space. So we do really consider all of these things. And so having bringing meaning into what you see, and taking the time to slow down and see that there are messages that are available, because the universe always wants to share messages with us. We're just looking away from them all the time. That's all it is. Like, so that's why when when you get hit over the head with it, like, and you get 10 messages right in a row, that's because the universe has been trying to send you messages for a long time, and they had to make it super crystal clear with a bright red cardinal or something like that, right?
Yeah.
That's very true.
Yeah, it's like all it has to do is like land on your face.
Exactly.
To know, like, oh, okay, I
Land on
should
my
pay
head.
attention to
Got
this.
it.
Really quick, and I know this isn't a quick topic, but just we can like kind of touch on it a little bit. In the book, you guys talk about solar terms and moon cycles. Like, I just want to understand a little bit. Like, so these are energetic shifts, right, that align with the seasons in Chinese philosophy. Can you just give us like a overview of what it means and how do we apply it?
Yeah. So the Chinese and Asian cultures, and actually many different cultures, so Celtic cultures, South American cultures, ancient cultures really looked carefully at the calendar. And so do we, right? In modern life, in a different way. We have our calendars are a little bit different though. But they look to calendars to look at these cycles of seasons. So we have, we have our four seasons, but specifically, we talk about in the book how the ancient Chinese actually divided those seasons into 24 micro seasons. So it's just equally divided into like each month has 2 micro seasons basically. And even the Japanese go so far as 72 micro seasons. So it's just a way of like looking at like what's happening in your world, how do you organize it, and how do you notice the shifts of how the shifts in your day or the shifts in your year and tell you something about the shifts in your life, right? Because we can all resonate with the feeling of being that newborn, like, or that young teenager that's this popping out in the spring, and then you're in the summer of your life, and then you're in the autumn of your life where things start to die away, and then winter is when things go back to quiet, and then things start again. But we also do that every day. We wake up to the spring. We have high noon is like the summer of the day. And then autumn is when it starts to get darker. And then winter is when we go back to sleep. And we have that in every moment. So it's it's a philosophy of looking at the world, but also it can tell us something about how to move through our life, how we can be more present with our environment, right? So like, that's why we find it so unusual. Like in New York, it's like super hot in the fall and then it's like super cold. Like there's something unusual about it, but there's something really wonderful about like noticing like that time of year where all the autumn leaves are falling down, or when we're all bundled up in our warm jackets for the snow, and how do we start to like just notice all these shifts in our environment instead of living in a bubble, but really acknowledging that like, okay, we live on this earth that we've all inherited. And how do we live in harmony with the natural world? And how does that create more harmony on our hearts?
Yeah. Yeah. And just thinking about like, and not, I associate the winter with just being miserable. Like I hate the cold. I hate being cold. I hate everything about it. So like once the summer ends and like I like the fall, and everyone's like, oh, how do you not let, such a great season, the fall. And like, no, the fall leads to
leads to the
winter,
winter.
which is like the most depressing season of the year in my mind.
Well,
but if you look at it in a different way, like you just said, I think that brings a new meaning to it, a new way to approach it. I like that.
Yeah.
Most people don't like the winter. Yeah. Cause you're cold.
It's cold.
And that's why spring is so wonderful. And like certain things like having the hope of spring, it tells us a lot. But, traditionally people had to store things. You stayed inside more. Things are darker. So there's different ways that we live our lives in the winter. And obviously, like you have to bundle up more. You eat different things. So it's about looking at your whole lifestyle in harmony with what's happening rather than in denial of what's happening.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally. And I think too, there's something nice about, I did live in California for a while, and there's not really seasons. Yes, there's warm and there's hot, there's warm, and there's a little cooler. But there is something nice about the seasons and the change and the different foods. Like I really love, I love like a hearty winter meal.
Yeah,
I'm getting hungry
like
right
a
now,
soup.
actually.
I know.
Yeah. But no, that's cool. So one other thing. So there's this, you talk about this monthly chi forecast. What does that mean? And if you can just like give us a brief description of that.
So we've been doing that for a while. Angie and I kind of came up with this way of looking at each month, using feng shui principles, but also using the solar terms. And we started doing it in our podcast, and we do it basically the first of each month. And we look at the solar terms. So each month is comprised of 2 solar terms. They're roughly about 2 weeks. Oh, they are 2 weeks long, and they fall within the same sort of 3 days, but there's a specific day each year. And we can sort of talk about what does that mean historically, thousands of years ago, when farmers were trying to figure out what to do or what festivals were happening. This is what they do over years and years and years. And there's a reason for it. And they look at what's happening around them in nature. And so what we do is we talk about those, what they mean. We encourage people to look at what's happening in their own area and their own climates. And in the book, we go through them in detail. And then we give you ways to embrace it. So, for instance, you're talking about, let's say we talk about November or November or December. November is, kind of there's Thanksgiving in the US. We have, listeners all over the world, but it's also a time when things are starting to get colder. As you said, winter's coming, and it can be a little bit kind of a bummer. So we give people ways to embrace it, gratitude because of Thanksgiving. And in each of them, we sort of talk a little bit about like, what is the element that's emerging this month? Because another thing about those 5 elements I mentioned with the 5 colors, they also are attached to seasons. So for instance, we're sitting in the metal season in October, November, but we're moving into water season with winter. And each of those types of seasons and those elements have different energies that we kind of want to do specific things around. I actually really love December. I don't mind the winter so much. I'm Canadian. I can't deny it. There's nothing I can do around it. Even, when I'm not in Italy, I'm going back for like December, January, February, March. Who does that? Who goes back to Canada for those
I
4
know,
months? But
right?
anyway, that's what I'm doing. But I can't help it. I'm a Canadian. I just need the snow. So, what do? I love it because the winter solstice, which is going to be the 21st of December this year, is a really powerful time energetically. And so, these are things that we can look at. We all know it happens, but we're like, oh yeah, it means it's really, really dark tonight. It's like, yeah, it does. But what that also means is in Feng Shui, the yin energy, that dark, quiet, still energy is peaking. There is
Wow.
the maximum of it. And so we encourage you to sort of embrace that and see what does that mean. So maybe sit in complete darkness or watch the sunset and then light one small candle and see how that candle light, which is yang energy, is like baby yang energy with that little flame. How does that, like, what do you feel? Like looking at the candle, feeling like basically really feeling those 2 different types of energies and embracing them.
Wow.
So this is the kind of things that we give you in the Chi forecast that you can play around with, which I love doing. I find it fascinating. It makes the cycles of nature. It makes the calendar of our lives. It gives it that, as we say, everyday magic, right? It gives it that kind of underlying magic where we can all sort of practice these like mini rituals, these little things that really help you love what's going on each month.
Yeah. And it kind of like brings meaning to it and a little bit more purpose. And you can, like, as you're describing that, I'm like, I just picture being under a blanket, like all cozy under a blanket with a fire.
Yeah.
I was
with a bowl of soup.
With a bowl of soup, with like a nice bowl of veggie chili, which I have sitting in my refrigerator right now. But I think I said this last time. I was recently in Sicily, and this one Airbnb that we rented was up in Noto, but it was the hills of Noto, which I'm forgetting. The name is escaping me.
I can't.
But whatever. Anyway, it was outside of Noto, the hillside, and this house was built. You guys would love this house because it was literally built into the ground, and everything about it was bringing the nature elements in. And just all the materials that they used. It was like concrete, limestone, all of these nature elements. And it was beautiful. It was all glass. The whole upstairs was all glass. And then the downstairs was like almost like cave-like where you go to sleep. And, purposely, everything was very purposeful in this house. But one of the things that I was reading in their little, Airbnb, guide to the home and was turn off all the lights at night. And just because this place was so remote, turn off all the lights and just let the stars illuminate the house. It takes your breath away. It was like the most awe-inspiring thing I've ever seen. It was just beautiful. But that kind of made me think about when you were saying, kind of describing that feeling that you get and doing these different rituals that kind of, spark this magic or this like feeling inside you that you don't always get if you're not paying attention, especially, So it's great.
Exactly.
Well, thank you again.
Thanks
Thank you
for
guys
coming back.
coming back. I love this. I'm
Do you have
glad we
any?
got to
I know.
dive
Are there
deeper.
any last words of feng shui that we did not that are most important to impart?
I don't know. We covered a lot today. We
Yeah.
went from symbols to calendars to
I know.
I mean,
Yeah.
we were all over the place.
All over
Yeah,
the place,
no.
but we really enjoyed it. We really enjoy speaking with the two of you. The book again is Mindful Living: A Guide to the Everyday Magic of Feng Shui. Our guests, Anjie Cho and Laura Morris. Thank you so much for being back again at Everybody Talks.
Yes.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
You.
Wow. So another great chat about feng shui.
Yeah.
That it's so interesting.
It is. It's like I mean, the book is so good, Mindful
Yeah.
Living. But I like that we got to like dig a little deeper this time
I
into some
know.
of like the symbolism and all those nature elements and the colors and all of that
Yes.
stuff. I mean, I can't wait to go home and do some more stuff.
I know. I really do want to I know you don't believe me, but I really do want to redo my bedroom, you
Mhm.
know? And I realized like my bed is on the wrong wall. It should be on the other wall. On the other
It
wall.
should, but like, are those?
They're all built
They're
in, but they're
built-ins.
made of wood, so that's in my favor.
They are made of wood.
Yeah.
They could and
Yeah.
and they could. I'm sure you can.
But I got to clean up that corner. Well, I got to clean up that corner anyway. Someone's silent. You know what I kept thinking of? There is at Passover. I don't think I'm remembering this wrong, but at Passover time when like Moses, I know I'm getting a little deep into
Go ahead.
Judaism a little bit,
Go
but
ahead, that's all right.
there's a line in the Seder that says with signs and with wonders, you know,
Mhm.
and I think it's from the Seders. I'm pretty sure in the Haggadah, which is the book that you read at the Passover Seder. And that's all I keep thinking about is like the world is filled with signs and symbols and wonders. And you just have to take a minute to notice them. And I think, you know, I do, you know, I know I've talked ad nauseum about my walk in the park, which is shortly going away, but I feel like I do try to notice like the trees and the leaves and
Mhm.
the park and look
Mhm.
around the park and really enjoy the park.
Yeah. But now, don't you feel like the things that you notice, you want to come home and like Google what they
Yes.
mean?
Yes, I totally.
I do.
Yeah, I do.
You know,
too,
there was
always.
Ryan Seacrest's radio show,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he puts little clips of it on Instagram.
Yeah.
And a couple weeks ago, he and Tanya, and I'm forgetting their other co-host's name,
Is Sissany.
they were talking about kind of the same thing, how like they had this assignment was to go and find 5 things or something as you're just going about your day
Oh,
to
that's
find 5
interesting.
things, and like, and then how did you feel about it? And of course they were very funny about
Right.
you know their responses, their reaction to that.
Yeah.
You know, did it feel like an assignment? Did it feel like a chore? Or did it feel like, you know, you
Were
were
they
really
really
interested in it?
noticing?
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway,
Uh.
but yeah, I think that is something that I definitely do not do.
Yeah, you don't.
no.
You plow through.
I am going fast and furious.
Fast. We walked through the park yesterday, and I'm like, "What the hell is the hurry? What's you know? Here's your hat. What's your?" It's like, can we just walk and talk? Like, no,
We were talking,
not allowed.
but
No.
you have to pick up the pace.
Yeah, it's like you're not allowed.
I don't
You-
know if-
unless we're en route to doing something, or we're in the process of doing something. We're not allowed to just chat. We don't just chat anymore.
We're chatting right now.
It's for a purpose.
We chat 1,000,000 times a week. How much more can we chat? It's a lot of chatting. I mean, I don't have that much to say.
Yeah, you do.
I don't know.
So I don't
I
know.
don't have that much that's like interesting to say.
Well,
But, yeah, I
don't say
think-
that. We have a podcast.
I know that's true.
Um,
Slowing down a little bit more and noticing
Yeah.
things. The problem is like when it starts to get cold,
I know you just
wanna
want to
freaking get where I am
You wanna
going.
Get where you're going.
It is
totally
just
yeah.
miserable.
Yeah,
out
I
there.
agree with that. It's not fun being
I
outside.
did like one of the things that she didn't talk about this. She talked this before we started recording
Oh, which was what?
about the there's something on your back.
Oh yes,
like,
to have a sign,
a sign, or like a
yeah,
catch,
like a catchphrase.
not a
which
catchphrase. What's the
we
word?
don't have.
Like
it's
a safe word.
safe word, and we didn't. We don't really have that.
But I like that that's a good thing to do. She was saying how when she walks through the city,
Right.
and if she is, approaching someone or someone's
Right.
approaching her that she doesn't feel safe around, she'll say to her husband,
Yeah.
"Oh, there's something on your back," and that
Right.
means to walk away from that
It's
person or
good to have
situation.
something
It is
like
good to
that.
have that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so another great chat with Angie
chat
and
with
Laura.
them. I hope you enjoyed both of them. And if you didn't listen to the first one, go back and listen to it now. But anyway, that was this one. I'm Lori Schulweiss.
And I'm Jen Giamo.
And this was Everybody Talks.
Talk to you next time.
Take care.
For more information about our podcast, to learn more about us, and to catch up on all of our episodes, go to our website at everybodytalkspodcast.com.
Follow us on Instagram at Shuli, at Jen Giamo, and at Everybody Talks. And if you want to watch today's episode, go to our YouTube channel at Everybody Talks Podcast.
Join the Everybody Talks community by checking out our Patreon page, where you can become an exclusive member of our wellness group and be a part of the conversation.
And don't forget, if you like what you've heard, give us a 5-star rating, write a review, and tell a friend. We're for everybody and everybody. The Everybody Talks podcast is co-created, executive produced, and hosted by us, Lori Schulweiss and Jen Giamo. Produced and edited by Station 16.
Our theme song music is written and performed by Jackie Ryle and Aaron Navisi, with additional support from our pups, Oliver, Milo, and Murray.
Talk to you next time.